Hello and welcome to the In the Money Media Tailor-Made Partnerships Medallion Racing Kentucky Derby Final Answers Show. I'm your host, Peter Thomas Fornatale, coming to you live from Malone's Prime right here in Lexington, Kentucky, one of my favorite places in the world. Want to welcome everybody in, especially those of you here in the room with us, but also the, if last year was any indication, tens of thousands watching at home. Always a pleasure to be able to bring these shows to you with a panel of guests like the one we have today. Program pretty simple. First part of the show, we're going to talk about the late pick 5 on Kentucky Oaks Day, saving a little extra time for the Oaks itself. Going to take a little break, come back with the late pick 5 for the Kentucky Derby, including a much longer conversation on the big one, the Run for the Roses, the one we've all been waiting for, the Kentucky Derby itself. Let's introduce the panel really quick. To my left, if you're in the room here, you heard him speaking already. This is a man, we're doing a lot more with him on the In the Money Media Network this year, and that's by popular demand, because he's been so good with us over the last few years. Always enjoy working from Medallion Racing Tailor-Made. He is Phillip Shelton. Phillip, how are things?
Yeah, thanks, Pete. We're excited. Hopefully we can come up with some winners.
That's the plan. That's the plan. And then on the far right, a woman who last year came in to Lexington on Derby Week just to do this show. That's pretty cool. This year, she's here just to do the show, and then she's going to hang around and do some stuff with a little network called NBC. Not too bad. You know her from the Santa Anita simulcast feed, from her own fantastic podcast, The Owner's Box. She is Michelle Yu. Michelle, what's up?
What's going on, Pete?
And to my immediate right, the man I typically describe as the usual co-host of the program, and that's what he's been doing lately for us. You know him from another little network called Fox, and he's been with me for, God, many, many years now. I like to joke that I plucked him from obscurity, and he has returned the favor by being a very able co-host over the years. He is Jonathon Kinchen. What's up, JK?
Thank you. The only reason I came back is because there's really good bourbon here.
Oh yeah, very good bourbon. No. We see we're getting.
Blanton's is hard to get, let me tell you.
Yeah, we're getting into it already. Great bourbon selection here, fantastic place, and yeah, I'll second that idea about the food as well. Really tasty nibbles. Let's see if we can win enough money on Friday. We can come back here and really raid the bourbon list, get into some of the vintage stuff. We're going to start out talking about race number 7 on Friday. It's the Grade 2 Ali Sheba. I'm going to bring in Michelle Yu to get her thoughts on this one. We're going a mile and a 16th on the dirt at Churchill Downs. Michelle, there's a big favorite here in Olympiad. Are you with or against?
Yeah, you might as well call me JK. I'm just going to go with the favorite here. I like Olympiad. He's looking for his 4th straight victory. I like his running style. I like the way he's been just really improving in my eyes. You know, every once in a while you get one of these colts and they turn the page into age 4, age 5, and they get a little bit better, and that's when we get these nice older handicap horses. So I like Olympiad. They obviously had high aspirations from him from the get-go. He was a $700,000 purchase originally, but he's the horse for me in here. Although the other horse I like is the 6 Folsom, and his price at 8-1 is really good. So there is a way to make money if you still like Olympiad. Folsom just won the Oaklawn Mile last time out off of the layoff, and he's going to be stepping up here. He loves this distance, and he likes Churchill Downs. Plus, we are expected to have some rain. This horse has a win in the slop. So there's a lot of pluses from me. If you want a pricier horse, I would look to the 6.
I'm glad you mentioned Folsom, because I was going to give you a really hard time after we brought you here at great expense, Michelle, and you just picked the favorite.
I mean, I flew economy, and I had a 9-hour layover. I'm good.
JK.
I did not fly economy. But
I want JK's agent.
No, look, I mean, I think Olympiad is a very likely winner. But I will say that although Olympiad will be a lot of singles for a lot of people on the day, there's that all-stakes pick 5 as well that kind of starts off over a couple of days. He's good, and he's going to probably win, but he ain't 4 to 5 single, no one else good. And so I agree with Folsom. I think is a little bit of a saver type, maybe a B type. Happy Savers had big races in the past, and you kind of allow Todd to allow a horse to develop that's shown some talent. They can sometimes jump up and give you one of those big performances. And then another horse that I thought ran extremely well last time was Weyburn. I wouldn't leave him off. I will play this race with Olympiad as a single A horse, but then I will use Weyburn, the 2, the 6 Folsom, the 7 Happy Saver as saver types. No pun intended.
I have little to add. I think Olympiad is the most likely winner by far, at least wins this race, I think, 50 times out of 100. Folsom, interesting long shot. And then I'll second JK's idea about Happy Saver. I just feel like his preps, to me, look a little bit stronger than Max Player's preps for this. So I think he can probably reverse that form.
Completely against Max Player. That horse has never won a race without a huge setup. He won't win on Saturday.
Phillip, what do you think? Is it going to be a chorus for Olympiad?
Yeah, I basically probably had the same opinion everybody else did. I think Olympiad's good. I don't think he's great. I think to me the biggest question is just the way the pace is going to play out. It looks like there's very little early speed. To me, I wanted to come in and pick Folsom. He's 1 for 1 at Churchill. I think the Oaklawn, the mile last time, I think that was a pretty good field, and I think it was arguably better than what Olympiad had been facing at Fairgrounds. But he's just going to be coming from pretty far out in a race that doesn't look like it has much speed at all. So really for me, I thought Olympiad, and I also wanted to get into Weyburn. I think Weyburn ran really good last time, and I think the biggest question for him is, does he really want to go 2 turns? His best races have been at 1 turn, but he does have the race at Monmouth where he just got beat a neck by Mandaloon. So to me, I'm going to focus on those 2. I think stretching out to 2 turns again, he's going to be a little closer to the pace. But, I try to play Weyburn for a slight upset.
Let's move on to race number 8. We've got 3-year-old fillies in the Grade 2 Edgewood, mile and a 16th on the turf. Phillip Shelton, we'll keep it with you.
Yeah, so I think going back, I think this is another race that really looks like it doesn't have much speed. And I think that kind of let me land on the 2, My Filly Twirl. I think she's run her last 3 races, right on the pace or sitting in second. I don't think it was the best field last time out in the Sanibel Island, but I think she got good speed. I actually think Le Peru is like one of the better speed riders. The horse has to take you to the lead because he's never putting you on the lead. But if that happens, he feels like he's very good at just getting him to relax early. And I just thought, Chad at 7-2 with the 3, coming off of a big layoff. You've got the 5, I think ran well last time, but was just second best behind a much better horse.
Kinchen?
Yeah, that's right. If we go far enough back, it's Kinchen. And then, I thought the 8, I don't know how the 8 is going to be 3-1. I think that horse is going to sit a perfect trip. But to me, I just wanted to get a little bit of a price. If I just stretch out beyond that, I think you could play the 8 and the 5. They look like they're going to be the 2 closest to what feels like a pretty slow-paced race. So maybe a slight upset here for me with the 2.
Clever idea. I'm definitely interested. I agree with you about the pace scenario. I ended up landing on Doce Zell, the 5 runner, who I thought was compromised last time against Spenderella, coming from off the pace and looking at these pace figures, which in a race that doesn't seem to have a ton of early foot, I was hoping she could maybe prove the best of the speed. But I was going to mention, she already came up, the filly Kinchen, who McCulloch beat. When was that? Was that last time out? No, it was 2.
I would take it easy with the word beat. I ran second. She ran third.
Yeah. The other way around. But did they run the first race together too?
No.
No,
that was Sail By won the first race. They came back in the Miss Grillo. Yeah.
I was just curious to know what the filly named after your father, how she's doing.
I haven't heard. I texted Chad and Bob Edwards actually yesterday, and it's still blue. No, responded to me. So I don't know. I mean, I'm sure she's fine. I'm sure she's at the farm growing up a little bit. So we'll be excited to see her back.
Do you know that horse is named after Chad Brown's first employee?
Which one?
McCulloch.
Oh no, I didn't know that.
There you go.
Well, it was like his accountant, right? Something. I think it was like I think it was.
Jonathan, who wins the Edgewood?
I don't have a strong opinion here. I will say this, that I think especially on Friday, I would take into consideration that the ground's going to probably have some give. And with these younger horses, you don't always get the form to know who's going to run well on ground not listed as firm. But every turf race this entire weekend, I'm going to peek at who's run well on not firm ground, and I'm going to upgrade those horses. When they're younger horses, one of the things you can do is you can dig a little bit deeper to some of the siblings to try to find a sibling that maybe had run well on soft ground, or just find a very turfy family. They'll typically handle it as well. I'm going to spread. I'm going to use. I don't really love either one of Chad's horses, and I think that when you're dealing with a race like this, a race where I bet a lot of money a couple years ago on Newspaper of Record, and Concrete Rose ended up winning. when you have a race like this, where it's a 3-year-old filly turf race, they're going to bet Chad like Chad can't lose. And I'm a strong believer in a lot of situations that Chad can't lose. There's actually a big 20-horse race where I feel like Chad can't lose. But in this situation, I think Chad can lose. I'm going to spread. I'm going to use the 3. I'm going to use Tom Amos, the 4. I'm going to use the 7 with Safi Joseph. I'm going to try to spread around in here. If you're going to hold my feet to the fire,
I was going to do that, actually. So
yeah, I'll pick the 7 Beechnut Trophy. It's a horse that's closing into a slow pace. One of my favorite angles in turf racing, closing into slow paces. So that'll be my top choice. But I'm going to spread in here and hope that they're going to bet. These 2 Chad horses are going to bet. Like they can't lose, and they can lose.
Michelle, what do you think about the Edgewood?
Well, there are 3 Chad Brown horses that are in there that I do think are
I was only talking about the 2
interesting,
that actually can win. I don't like Spicer.
Really? I like Spicer a little bit. Okay, so looking at it and the way like JK was talking, I wanted to try to find someone that had experience on less than firm ground. I also liked my Philly Twirl because I thought this horse going to the front, especially if it gets a little soggy out there, just going to be able to hold on. We know she wants to go this far, and she's shown that she's pretty determined when she wants to win. So I thought at 10-1, she was a really good back. I liked knee ships if the turf ends up being like we think it's going to be because she had
What'd you call it?
soggy.
No, what'd you call the Ford?
Knee ships. What is it? Knees and hips.
Knees and hips.
I would have done the exact same thing.
Knee shifts.
You just saved
That's
me
such a weird name.
You saved me a host fail there.
All right,
Thank you.
knees and hips, apparently. Knees and hips.
Yeah, the owner's an orthopedic surgeon, so that's
I
right.
want.
Oh, so smart.
I need a little side check for the NBC for that.
Right? Okay, so the knees and hips for Tom Amos. I thought the race off the bench on good ground was okay. My biggest drawback with some of these fillies that have run successfully on less than firm ground is they all like come from behind, and I just think they're at a deficit in this instance. But worthy of a look, as is the 10 Dreamlith. Robertino hasn't run this filly on turf before, but she does have a full sister who's a 2-time turf winner. When you look at the pedigree, and if this was a first-time starter, and they said, I'm going to run a route in the grass, and it's a Medaglia d'Oro out of a street cry mare, you're going to say, no problem with her routing and no problem with her on the turf. So I think that it's interesting that he brings her over into this. We know she's got some back class to lean on. She won the Grade 2 Goldenrod at Churchill last year. Her 2 races this year were kind of crappy, but at least he's doing something different. He's changing something and trying something new. So I think that she is... If you're spreading in here, I would just chuck her in if she looks good. I'd want to see her in the paddock, though.
I agree with you, Michelle, about those 2 longer shots you mentioned. Knees and hips, I think is really...
Knee ships.
Knee ships, definitely...
Joel needs to name a horse knee ships now.
Definitely more interesting than the bare form suggests, I think, based on those trips. Should like the cut in the ground. And Dreamlith, I mean, an angle, we've talked about on the show over the years, JK, these horses that prove that they have the toughness to run on the dirt but have the turf pedigree. That's Dreamlith, and doing a little bit of digging on Diodoro stats, I don't think of him as a turf trainer, but his turf numbers are just fine. So yeah.
And the work 2 back was on the turf, so I'm sure it's Derby week. You could probably scour the internet and find that work to give yourself an idea of maybe how that went. I have no idea, but she did work on the turf 2 back, so maybe some clues there.
Yeah, exactly. If they didn't like how the horse worked on the turf, they wouldn't be entering on the turf.
Wow.
Let's talk about race 9. The 8 bells, 3-year-old fillies, 7 furlongs on the dirt. JK, your turn to start.
This is a race where I'm really interested in the California Invader. When it comes to, we said this a lot, especially on our shows, is when it comes to dirt racing, when a California horse comes out east, I upgrade. I'm a little bit more interested. When a East Coast turf horse goes out west, it's an automatic single for me, or if there's a couple of them, you just use those 2. I just feel like there's an edge. I like the 9 Awake at Midnight. This is a horse, especially in these races. You talk about the 8 bells. You talk about the Pat Day Mile on Saturday. So often when you find horses that have been trying to do something that they don't need to be doing. And I understand that because everyone wants to have a horse that's running in the Oaks or in the Derby. And so you try to fit help me out, Pete, a square peg into a round hole.
Nailed it.
Pete helps me. He's a New York Times bestselling author, if he didn't tell you that. So you get an opportunity sometimes to find horses that are doing what they should have been doing. And to me, Awake at Midnight, if you look at her race in the Santa Ynez going 7 furlongs, she ran extremely well that day. She was beat that day. She got a fast speed figure. And I'm hoping that the cutback after the Ashland that didn't work out for her kind of wakes her up a little bit, helps her through. You obviously want to use, Brad's horse with the 8 with Matarea, I'm guessing.
Yeah.
Matarea, but and Pretty Birdie on the inside, towards the inside. I always root for those silks of Mary Lou Whitney. But and she ran extremely well last time in Oaklawn. But my top choice is going to be the 9, Awake at Midnight, and she's a little bit of a price as well.
Same angle for me, different horse. The California form coming this way. I thought Ain't Easy was a little bit interesting in this spot. I felt like didn't have the easiest of trips last time, and people are going to accuse me, knowing my love of rock and roll, that this is just a Ringo Starr hunch play. But I do think Ain't Easy for me is going to be right up in the mix. Top selection though, I think Matarea just makes too much sense. I think he's going to get the right kind of trip, clean, stalking, or right on the lead, and just looks headed back in the right direction, too sharp to ignore. And I'll give a little shout for number 3, Marissa's Lady. Been running on the synth, but look at those dirt figs from early in the career. I think if you build in some improvement for age from what she was running on the dirt back then, makes a lot of sense. Might need to change tactics, try to come from a little farther back. I'm going to mess around 8, 4, and 3 in here. Phillip, how about you?
Yeah, I wish you would have came to me first, because I Awake at Midnight's definitely a horse I want to play. 2 dirt sprints. The horses ran second. The horse got loose on the lead, and she ran great. Won her debut sprinting. I think she's really interesting. I kind of want to just get to her and Matarea and just move on. And I think Matarea is the most likely winner in my mind. I wanted to play Marissa's Lady because I think she's going to float up. She's 7-2 morning line. I think she'll be higher than that. I think she could be 5-1 plus. And she's basically 5 of 6 lifetime. Her only loss came at a mile. So just keeping her at 7 furlongs. I just think there's probably a little too much speed in here. I think the horse directly to her inside is very fast. Matarea is not going to let him do too much. But, in my mind, I think Pratt is riding as good as anybody in the country right now. And I just think he's probably going to put this horse in the right spot. But I think Awake at Midnight's going to be a little bit further off the pace, I think. And if the pace fell apart, I could see her running late to pick up some pieces.
Michelle, let's bring you in for this one. You've seen these California ones that we're talking about in the flesh. Do you think we might be on to something?
So Matarea is my top pick in here, but I like Ain't Easy of the 2 California horses. I like the D'Amato horse because looking at her when she first debuted, I thought that she was really great. Watching her in the Chandelier, I was conflicted between her and Desert Dawn in that spot. The way she had actually won the Chandelier made me love her in the Breeders' Cup. She ended up not being able to run in the Breeders' Cup, but when she came back this year and she's been kind of middle of the road, I felt like a turn back was just going to be clutch for her. I love the fact that they opted for this. I think that the 7 furlongs is going to hit her square between the ears, and she's just I like watching her train. She's not like the prettiest filly, but like she just gets over ground really well. So I'm a big fan of Ain't Easy. But my second choice was actually the 6 Gerrymander for Chad Brown. She comes off a win last time out, and it wasn't November of last year, but it was at a 1-turn mile. So I think doing the 7 furlongs off the bench is going to be good. She was second on debut. She won next time out sprinting, and that was off the layoff as well. She ran second to Echo Zulu, who we all know how good she is, and then she beat Nest in that Tempted Stake. So even though we haven't seen her here, it looks to me on paper like she's been training really well. Chad's 27% off the layoff. You're going to get Rosario aboard. I thought if you're going to get this horse anywhere close to her 8-1 morning line, she was playable for me.
Race number 10 is the Turf Sprint, 5.5, 3-year-olds and up. Michelle, let's leave it in your court to kick this one off.
So I like the 10 in here, Arrest Me Red for Wesley Ward. 2 races back was the winner of a turf sprint over at Aqueduct. The 3rd place finisher that day did come out to win a grade 2 at Santa Anita. Came off the layoff, maybe going a touch shorter than preferred, but I think that Arrest Me Red looks good in this particular spot. He's also run well on less than firm going, which obviously is important to me. But I want to chuck you out a price horse in here, and it's the 13, What Makes Sammy Run for Mark Glatt. This horse has been working lights out in the mornings at Santa Anita. Obviously, it's on the main track. We don't allow turf works over at Santa Anita, so don't hold that against him. You know, his last race was going a mile. I just think overall he's not as good at a mile. I think that the sprints are where he wants to be, as you see is evident by his 2 prior races before that, the Desert Code and the Allowance race. I just love the way he's coming into this. I think that it was very bold of Mark Glatt to bring him in off such an extended layoff and send him all the way out here to California, from California, knowing that it's going to be a big weekend. You're going to get a huge field when, you know, some of our fields at Santa Anita are a little bit smaller that he maybe could have tangled with off the bench. So I think that shows a lot of confidence from Mark Glatt, and he's no dummy about where he places horses. His work, that was the 103 and change. I did note on a couple of handicapper stuff, including the handicappers report, that they got him as faster than that time, so don't think that he's that slow. But that blowout, he was like this. I mean, could have easily gone like 34 flat. I mean, he looked so good in that.
The old double handful for those who are just listening to the audio of this was this. Jonathan, years ago we talked about turf sprint handicapping on the show, and you said something that stuck with me and served me well ever since. You said you typically want the horse who you think is going to be the fastest, and you go with the horse with the best numbers, and then you go on with life. Is that your approach in this one?
Well, I think a lot of times with turf sprints, people, you know, you look down and you see a lot of speed, and then you look, oh, this closer who's really good, they're going to get me home. And it's just hard, and they're so short. The races are so short, and there's, you know, they're trip dependent, they're wide, they get shuffled, all these things. So I always kind of upgrade horses that have early speed. I'm going to use the 1 on the rail, Gregorian Chant. I don't love the draw, but I do like the fact that the 2 wins at Santa Anita, if you look a little bit deeper in the past performances, came on surfaces that were listed as not firm. I'm sure it was pretty darn firm out there, even though it was listed as good. But still, ran well enough, will finish. Can run a little bit further, has run well going 6, 6.5. Caravel, the 3, is a horse that I've just kind of always had a thing for. A lot of people tried to buy her after her Monmouth race last summer. Bobby Flay actually got her. It just never really worked out in Graham Motion's barn. She's a talented horse, and I'm excited to see her first time on the turf for Brad Cox. So I'm going to build a lot of things around Caravel. I'm a little bit disappointed that she hasn't run well on not firm. She's 0 for 3 on not firm, which kind of stinks because I just got done telling you how I feel about that. But I like the horse so much, I'm going to let them cancel each other out and just hope for the best. And then the last one I'll mention is Just Might. As another horse I want to be in love with, because like you said, this horse feels like the horse that's going to make the lead, feels like the horse that's on the outside that's going to clear. But then again, you're in that same predicament. Just Might is 0 for 6 on turf courses listed as not firm. So what do you do?
Plus, look at this last race when he was outside in the Shakertown. I felt like he just wasn't fast enough to get over and clear.
To be fair, nobody is as fast as Golden Pal.
No one. That's the only. I completely agree.
Not every horse can't go 20 and change.
Yeah, I think the Golden Pal effect kind of jumped on him. You know, I think in these turf sprints, and obviously depending on what your other opinions are, you don't have to be a hero and single a horse here. Just use 2. I'm going to be a little bit more spready in this spot, but those are some of the ones I'm going to use just because I'm a little bit nervous about the ground, and my top 2 choices just don't act well on it in the past.
You and I are so similar, I'll just jump in, and I'm actually moving my picks around as we're talking because there are those concerns about Caravel and Just Might. I respect them both so much, they'll be on some tickets, but I'm going to put the number 8 Gear Jockey on top. I thought ran really well with trouble against the outstanding Golden Pal the last time, and I think you go through some of those back races, some of them are good enough to win this handily if he can work out the right journey. 8-3-11 for me. Phillip, who is it for you?
Yeah, I'm just gonna. They just said a reminder since the PPs are messed up. If just when you say your horse, go ahead and give the number too.
Oh,
just in the room that way everybody can grab. You know, coming into this race, I was like, I just want to love Gear Jockey as the top horse. He's done well on a less than firm turf course, and again, I didn't love his last race. Like I almost ended up talking myself into Diamond Oops, who I bet he actually won this race 2 years ago. But I just want to give him a pass and say, hey, Golden Pal just spread eagled that field and just busted him, and the race was completely flawed from the very beginning because they ran against arguably the best turf sprinter in the world. So I'm probably going to land on number 8, Gear Jockey. I was still somewhat interested in number 7, Diamond Oops. Like, I don't think this is the strongest version of this race ever. I think some of the previous versions were maybe a little better. And then I also wanted to be interested in the one Gregorian Chance owned by, one of my friends, Nick Casado, at Slam Dunk. And I think, again, that horse maybe doesn't have to be as far back. The races at Santa Anita normally have a little bit more early pace. They're coming down the hill. But again, has run well on a softer turf course. But I think top pick for me has to be Gear Jockey. I've followed him a lot. I've made good money betting him in the past, which normally I try not to get married to any horse. But I just feel like he could set a really good trip, and he has run well on a less than firm turf course.
We're going to do one more race.
Wait,
before-
does anybody like the 4 chasing Artie, or is it just me a little bit?
I think that's just you.
Just too slow? Okay.
Yeah, I think that's just you.
Yeah, can't bet them all.
Yeah. We're going to do one more race before our little intermission here. It's the big one on Friday, the Kentucky Oaks. Phillip, I mentioned you have been pressed into service more this year by popular demand, and I've had more than one person say, Phillip's so good, especially with the fillies. Which of these 3-year-old fillies is going to get the job done?
Yeah, I wish I could say last year I was basically like Malathite is I'm cutting in line, as JK would say, to bet, because I got to see her all week at Churchill, and I just loved her, and I felt like she just couldn't lose. To me, I think this year's version is very strong, and I think it's very wide open. I think the rain obviously is a little bit of a question. Now, you could say, hey, Nest won at Keeneland on a wet, fast track. That's going to be a lot different than a really sloppy track, I think, and she was obviously very impressive. The horses that I'm interested in, I'm pretty interested in Nostalgic and Venti Valentine. I think that wasn't the strongest form, but Nest is the favorite. If we get to Venti Valentine, who's number 8, she ran second, got beat a neck to her in the Demoiselle, and was a little bit wider the whole way. I think didn't have a great trip. They brought her back first start of the year. She won by 7 lengths, just easy. Last time out, she got on the lead, which was just kind of by default, and she just wandered around. Like, I think in this race, she's going to get a completely different trip. She's proven that when she can sit off horses and she kind of has a target to go chase, that she's really good. And I like that she's run a 92 buyer. So, in this field, like Nest, who's going to be the favorite, her best buyer is a 92. So even though Nest was super impressive, won by 8 1/4, this filly, ran second, got beat a neck buyer as a 2-year-old. And then they've actually run, both their best buyers as a 3-year-olds a 92. So what I would say is I'm be spreading in here, but I want to try to play some prices, because I do think there's a scenario where the pace could end up being really fast, which kind of made me default to Nostalgic. I think, again, if you look at the Demoiselle, that was a race that had an incredibly slow pace. It was very good. Nest, Venti Valentine, Magic Circle is a multiple stakes winner, and she ran 4th. They tried her on the grass. It didn't work. They brought her back, and all she's done is win an allowance and win a mile and an 8th grade 3. So, I'm going to play the logicals, but I want to have a shot at those two if something crazy happens.
Jonathan, I know this is a race near and dear to your heart. Who is going to win it?
I think Nest is the most likely winner. It is a fun race. There's 2 horses I'm kind of against, and I'll start there. I think Echo Zulu is a freaky animal, but I don't know. I don't really need her at a mile and an 8th when someone's going to be, Yagiri's going to probably be super aggressive, and Echo's going to not make the lead. She's going farther than she's ever gone before. A lot of her races, if you look at pace figures, and I'll quote Paul Matisse. Paul didn't say this about Echo Zulu, but if you look at her line, she kind of downlines a little bit. She doesn't look like a horse that wants to go further. Maybe she will, because she's effortless when she makes the lead. But my whole approach to this race is trying to beat Echo Zulu, just because they're going to bet her a little bit as well. Kathleen O is one of those tricky horses who works well, doesn't work well, runs well. I think she can win. Ultimately, my top choice will be Nest, but I'm going to give you a story about how I like the 3 Hidden Connection. Here's
that was 1 to 5 for the show. Was JK gonna? We hope for Jake she runs big, but that was the surest bet of the whole night.
No, but I'm gonna use her underneath. I think a lot of things have to go right for her to win. I'd say take that back. A ton of things have to go right for her to win. But I actually told Jake this. I said better horses than Nest and Echo Zulu have lost the Kentucky Oaks, and worse horses than Hidden Connection have won it. I hated her ride two back off a break where Raylu was, I don't know, he was very aggressive and it didn't work out.
And that was a weird race because the leader pulled up, so it was just.
It was bizarre.
Yeah, it was a
and
bizarre
then
race
she
in
comes
general.
back and almost beats the champ and gallops out like a maniac. It's almost like she had more. Maybe earlier was a. I think she's going to run well because she's been banging heads with all those good horses. She's run well at Churchill before. Like I said, Nest, most likely winner. Echo Zulu can absolutely win. Kathleen O, probably the next most likely winner. But I do think that at a 20-1 on the morning line, Hidden Connection does make a little bit of sense.
What do you think she's actually going to go off of that? To me, that's a crazy morning line. Just given the
No, she's
fact.
going to get forgotten.
Jonathan, you said you were against two horses. I can presume from what you did not
Secret Oath,
say
Secret Oath, Secret
that
Oath.
Secret Oath was the other one. What's
Yeah,
your
I mean,
what's your knock on
I'll
her?
probably save with her just because she's visually been pretty impressive. But I thought her they're going to make the excuse about the trip last time, and she did have a weird trip, and it was a bad ride. But from a number standpoint, she's just not quite there yet. And I hate overly aggressive campaigns. Like, it was just a lot for her, and it's been a lot, and they just keep showing up and trying, and she's drawn the inside. She's gonna have to work out a perfect trip from the inside. She doesn't have a lot of tactical speed. She's gonna take back, circle around, and then have to beat 1, 2, 3, 4, maybe 5 horses that are better than anything she's ever run against, and that's including
tall task.
Cyberknife.
Yeah, it's a very tall task. I will go next because it's funny because we have the same fundamental opinion of being against Echo Zulu and Secret Oath in this spot, but I think we're landing on it slightly different ways. I definitely love Kathleen O. I'm not really that worried about the fact that she's not a good workhorse because she wasn't a good workhorse before other big numbers she put up. I don't think she's downturning. We joked with Matt Bernier on the show early in the week that maybe she's just got a little bit of Allen Iverson in her. Doesn't really like the practice. But, when it's a game, Kathleen O shows up. So I'm interested in her. I'm also a little bit interested in a horse that I haven't heard too much about this week, Desert Dawn. I think is an interesting long shot, improving, not too far off the best of these. And I think she might just end up getting a really good trip, being positioned no worse than mid-pack. And she's got enough finish to maybe get a jump on some of these deeper closers. So those are the two I'm going to key around. And I'm going to mix them in with, I think Hidden Connection is a really interesting long shot. JK, I think, made the key point. When they gallop out like that after a tough race, it just suggests to me that there's more under the hood. It sounded like she wasn't necessarily as fit as could be back for that first race. Third off the layoff. I think we're going to see more from her. I'm going to mess around, and I respect Nest as well. So it's going to be, 4, 9, 10 with 2, 3, 4, 9, 10, and flip it the other way as well for me in this year's Kentucky Oaks. Michelle, what do you think?
I like Echo Zulu. All
Good.
you guys are
Let's-
hating on her right now. She, really, I was so impressed with her last year. I know JK thinks she doesn't want to go further, but every race she's winning by more. So to me, I feel like she has so much natural speed that she gets out there. And a lot of times when it's sprinty, anyone can sprint 5 furlongs sometimes, right? But as it gets further and further, it's very hard to carry that speed. And I feel like Echo Zulu has been capable of that. Her race in the Fairground Oaks, I thought, was really good. Not only did it show that she still has her talent, but I thought that it showed she turned a page. I think that she has a lot of tenacity, and that's something I don't see from some of the other horses like Kathleen O. And it's not because she just isn't good, it's because she hasn't been challenged the way that Echo Zulu was by Hidden. I mean, you watch that race, right? She's out there off the layoff. Her ears are literally up like this if you watch the race. I mean, it looks like she's out for a jog. And coming down the lane, she was blatantly tired. Hidden Connection is charging at her, still couldn't get to her despite the fact that Echo Zulu was like, whoa, I did not work out for this part of the race. I think she's going to be so much fitter with that race under her belt. I think it's pretty ambitious of Steve to come into this race with only one race as a foundation for this year. I'm glad she had lots of racing as a 2-year-old. To be quite frank, when we got around to the middle of January, beginning of February, and she hadn't had to work, I'm like, she's not even going to make the Oaks. So I'm shocked to see her here, and I'm pleased to see her here. But I love a horse with tenacity, and to me, she's shown time and time again she's got talent, she's got tenacity to back it up. If this track is wet, I feel like Churchill plays extremely well to front runners, especially if they're near the rail when the track is off. I can see her going right to the lead, putting those ears up, and just trolling on down, and no one's going to be able to slug through the mud to catch her. So I like Echo Zulu. I also like Secret Oath. I did think that she didn't get the greatest trip in there, but also she was facing different animals. She was facing a bunch of boys. She gets back to her own sex, which she has manhandled, and I love the way she does it. If you want to be impressed by a horse that's an athlete, you go back and watch her Honeybee, where she is literally going, she stops down to like a jog almost, she turns this way, and then she gets immediately back into stride. Most horses can't do that. You see a horse check, they go out the back and everyone's like, oh, she got stopped. This horse stops, comes back around, moves again, she goes this way, she's literally an equine Corvette. I'm so impressed with her athletic ability, and so what if she wasn't good enough to win the Arkansas Derby? There's no boys in this race. I think that she's more than good enough to beat the girls. I agree, I don't like her draw in here, but I don't think Saez has to drop back and go wide. I think he can like Burrell up the inside if he has the balls to, because frankly she can do it.
So I just want to add a couple things about Echo Zulu. This is a weird thing to say after
that you apologize for not liking her.
I'm sorry. No, but the thing is, like, this is a game of inches, right? And you have to make decisions. And I think a lot of times horse players get caught in this position where you just want to be right, so you start throwing in horses because you just can't stomach getting beat by a horse you know is talented. I'm going to tell you how I feel about Echo Zulu. If she handles a mile and an eighth, she'll win by 6. She's a freaky animal. I just have to make a decision. And the decision I'm going to make is that she's not going to handle the mile and an eighth. And when she gallops and she wins by 6, I'll grab another Lily on the way to the bus and I'll just take it like a champ.
Is this your way of backing out of the head-to-head bet we were just going to get done?
No. I'll make the head-to-head bet. I'm just saying.
So what do you want? So if we know what Michelle wants,
I don't want to play with JK. He never pays up when he loses.
That's
you
not
see
true.
all these gray hairs?
That's not true. I saw the picture.
The gray hairs are certainly bets with JK I've won that he hasn't paid up for.
They're talking about these guys.
I saw the picture from Saratoga, from Salivo in Saratoga.
Oh,
He
yeah.
did pay up.
Yeah, the one
He
that
did.
wrote
It took him
champagne,
a while.
yes.
It took him a while.
A year and a
but
half.
He did, but he did.
We can
pay
pull
up.
the numbers if we have to.
But what do you want if you win, Jonathan?
Is this just head to head?
Yeah, head-to-head, Echo Zulu against whoever you pick.
You have to wear a shirt on the Santa Anita simulcast.
We're going to talk about
Will
the
you
shirt
actually
later.
give it to me? Or have to buy it myself?
We're gonna
buy that?
Yeah.
You should have texted me.
We're talking about the shirt later. Don't mess up my bit for that.
I'm sorry.
Yeah. So, okay, we are going to take 5 minutes. We're going to be back with the pick 5 on Kentucky Derby Day. Phillip, you explain.
Yeah, so just if you need to get a refresher, Molly's going to come up. She's going to go ahead and we're going to draw a couple names.